Leonardo da Vinci, one of history's most fascinating figures, was born on April 15, 1452, in a small town called Vinci in the Tuscan region of Italy. Leonardo was born out of wedlock to a notary named Ser Piero and a peasant woman named Caterina. This meant that while his father was relatively well off, his mother came from a much more modest background. Because Leonardo was born outside of marriage, he didn't grow up in the same household as his father. Instead, he lived with his mother for the first few years, and when he was around 5, he moved in with his father's family. His father eventually married a woman named Albiera di Giovanni Amadori, but they didn't have children, so Leonardo was the only child in the household for some time. Despite his birth circumstances, Leonardo was accepted into his father's household without much stigma, which was somewhat unusual for the time. Growing up in the countryside, Leonardo had the kind of childhood that would foster his natural curiosity. The landscape around him consisted of things to observe and explore. Rivers, mountains, forests, you name it. From a young age, he was fascinated by nature, and this curiosity would stay with him throughout his life. He had so much interest in how things looked and worked, whether it was the flow of water or the way birds flew. This keen observation of the natural world would later influence his work as an artist and a scientist. Leonardo didn't receive a formal education in the way we think of today. That's to say, he didn't go to a traditional school or learn Latin, the language of scholars at the time. Instead, he was largely self-taught, driven by his insatiable curiosity. He learned to read and write in Italian and quickly developed a talent for drawing. His notebooks from his youth were filled with sketches of plants, animals, machines, observations, and ideas. Even at a young age, it was clear that Leonardo saw the world differently. When Leonardo was a teenager, his father recognized his talent for drawing and decided to apprentice him to a well-known artist in Florence named Andrea del Verrocchio. This was a massive opportunity for Leonardo because Verrocchio's workshop was one of the best in Florence, and Florence was one of the most important cultural centers in the world at the time. Leonardo would have learned many skills as an apprentice, not just painting and drawing but also sculpture, metalwork, and even some engineering. He worked alongside other young artists and artisans, learning the techniques that would later make him famous. One of the most important things about this period in Leonardo's life was that it exposed him to various disciplines. Verrocchio's workshop wasn't just about art, it was where science and art intersected. Leonardo saw firsthand how engineering, anatomy, and art were connected, which likely fueled his interdisciplinary approach to learning and creating. After Leonardo da Vinci completed his apprenticeship with Andrea del Verrocchio in Florence, the next stage of his life marked the beginning of his journey as an independent artist. By the late 1470s, Leonardo had finished his apprenticeship and began to work in Florence as a master in his own right. This period was crucial because it was when Leonardo established his reputation, not just as a skilled artist but as a visionary with a unique approach to art and science. One of his first major commissions was an altarpiece for the chapel of the Palazzo Vecchio in the town hall of Florence. Although this work was never completed, it showed that Leonardo was starting to be recognized as a promising young artist. Around this time, he also painted his first known work, The Annunciation, showcasing his developing skills in creating lifelike figures and his mastery of light and shadow. However, what set Leonardo apart from other artists was his relentless curiosity and refusal to stick to just one discipline. While many artists of the time focused solely on painting and sculpture, Leonardo was interested in everything: anatomy, engineering, botany, and more. He spent countless hours studying models to understand better the mechanics of muscles and bones, which he believed was essential for accurately depicting the human form in his art. His notebooks from this period are filled with detailed drawings and notes on everything from the flow of water to the structure of plants, showing just how broad his interests were. In the early 1480s, Leonardo's reputation reached beyond Florence, and he began seeking opportunities elsewhere. This led him to Milan, a city hub of culture, politics, and science. Milan was ruled by Ludovico Sforza, also known as Ludovico il Moro, who wanted to make the city a center of Renaissance culture. Leonardo saw this as a perfect opportunity to offer his services, not just as an artist but also as a military engineer and architect. Leonardo famously wrote a letter to Ludovico Sforza, essentially selling himself as a jack of all trades. In this letter, he outlined his capabilities in constructing bridges, designing weapons, and creating innovative military machines. Almost as an afterthought, he mentioned his ability to paint. This showed how Leonardo viewed himself as an artist, a thinker, and a problem solver who could contribute to many different areas. Ludovico was indeed impressed, and Leonardo moved to Milan around 1482. This move began a long and productive period in Leonardo's life. In Milan, he was able to work on a variety of projects, from designing intricate theatrical sets to creating detailed studies of human anatomy. But perhaps most importantly, it was here that Leonardo began to work on some of his most famous artistic projects, including The Last Supper. While in Milan, Leonardo continued developing his interests in science and engineering. He designed everything from flying machines to water systems, and his notebooks from this period were filled with sketches and ideas that were far ahead of their time. After Leonardo's successful years in Milan, where he created famous works like The Last Supper and explored many new ideas, his life took a big turn. In 1499, Milan was invaded by the French, and Leonardo had to leave the city. He found himself without a job or a patron, which meant he needed to find a new place to work and live. For a while, Leonardo traveled around Italy. He spent some time in Venice, where he was asked to help design ways to protect the city from invaders. He devised creative ideas for defense, like floating barriers in the canals, but these plans were never fully implemented. In 1500, Leonardo returned to Florence, where he started working on one of his most famous paintings, the Mona Lisa. This painting was for a wealthy merchant named Francesco del Giocondo. The Mona Lisa became renowned for its mysterious smile and the lifelike detail Leonardo put into it. While in Florence, Leonardo also got a big job painting a mural called the Battle of Anghiari on the city's town hall wall. He tried new techniques to make the mural, but unfortunately, these didn't work out as planned, and the mural started to fade before it was even finished. Although the project was not completed, Leonardo's sketches show it would have been a fantastic work of art. During this time, Leonardo was also compared to another great artist, Michelangelo. Although we know these two have different styles, and people just love to debate about who's better. Michelangelo was known for his powerful sculptures, while Leonardo was admired for his careful attention to light, shadow, and the human body. In 1506, Leonardo returned to Milan, which was now under French control. The new French rulers welcomed him back and hired him as a court painter and engineer. Leonardo took on a new apprentice, Francesco Melzi, who later became one of his closest friends and helped him on a few of his works. Later in his life, Leonardo was invited by King Francis I of France to live at the French court. He moved to France in 1516, where he spent his final years. He never stopped thinking, drawing, and creating as he grew older. Leonardo continued to work on his ideas until he passed away in 1519. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like, share, and also don't forget to hit the subscribe button to keep up with more of our contents.